Hello, my dearest fishies. Let's go ahead and take care of a couple of different bugs. Let's see, the first bug. It seems as though the fish are spawning too far off the screen. And that is the first issue. Let's take care of the second issue. It looks like... Yes, Jake. Calibrate. Okay, so then I can fix this. Please move. There we go. Hello, my dear fishies. It seems as though my webcam that I use for hand tracking when I'm in the closet has died, so I no longer have hands. Cool, right? Hello, ASMR Mans. Congratulations on redeeming first in chat. Hello, Slims. Hello, Wood. Hello, Anxiety. Hello, Who Cares? Welcome. I hope you enjoy your nap and that you are filled with peaceful, relaxing, sweet dreams. Hello, Joker. Hello, Pam. May I have a puzzle? Absolutely. Of course. If you're asking, of course you can have a puzzle. My cat is going to join us today, and I will allow him to stick around if he remains peacefully where he is supposed to stay. Alright, let me go ahead and select some puzzles from the library of puzzles. I think these are pretty cool. Maybe, difficult, but cool nonetheless. Welcome to all of our fishies. Please come in, get settled, and we're gonna let the ads play before I get started on reading. I did also just have my dinner, so I need a few minutes to, work out all of the food in my stomach. Yes, I can only understand the last two characters. Des. I don't know kanji. So I can't read your name. I figured it was Japanese with the des at the end. Pan. Let's be respectful. Hello. I don't know what your name is, but that looks like bread. Has he stopped eating his own butt? They want to know if you stopped eating your butt. He just blinked at me. I'm feeling cheeky today. You can be cheeky, but you need to be nice, okay? It is Loaf. Hello, Loaf. Today is the best day. Congratulations. Okay. It looks like Twitch chat has had their advertisements. Hello, Father Slice. Welcome. Thank you for the hydrate. Don't forget to drink your water. Otokonoko desu. Otokonoko desu. Otokonoko desu. Nice to meet you. Hajimemashite. Yokoso. Otokonoko desu. I was in your stream the other day when you were playing, yes, Stardew. I will actually be playing Stardew after stream today. Gotta make sure you get that 120. Unfortunately, I have not had my 80 ounces yet. So, yeah. This is full. So I guess I'm currently at 40. Yeah, 40 ounces. Hi, Lena. Welcome back. Now, someone did give me feedback that my stream doesn't look the same without the spotlight. So I'm gonna see if I included the blueprints for the spotlight. It looks like I did not, which is unfortunate. I don't know, Ryan. That's a great question. I'm not going to do that right now, though. Let me also find facing. I have heard great things about Genki. Let's go ahead and add the spotlight back to the background, because I think that that contributes vibes. This is what it normally looks like. I try to put it to a color that kind of matches my hair a little bit. I gotta sneeze. Okay, sorry. Why do your ears wiggle when you do that? My ears are wiggly because of my eyes and my eyebrows and my smiles. I think you should hydrate. Oh my god, are you guys trying to waterboard me? Wood, congratulations on the 40 stream streak. Slim's already hitting me with the posture check, and I hate that you're right. Thank you. Otokonoko desu. I'll get used to it. I'll get used to it. But I appreciate your patience while I get used to it. I also have this. No, wrong one. Anyway, that's a lot of hydrates. Oh my god. You guys are gonna make me put the cooldown back in place. Your microphone quality is fantastic. Thank you. I turned my closet into an audio booth. Alright, anyway, we gotta fix. That was my stomach. Don't worry about that. It was just my stomach. Guys, I've got to read today. I hope you know I am not going to do all of those hydrates. You're asking for too much right now. Just right now. But you're asking for too much right now. Sorry, I was just distracted. So then we do that, and then I could just turn this off, and we don't use that one. I turn that off. Side softness. Side softness. Source radius. Keep it thin. Okay, and the asset look to well, that's unfortunate. I don't know where it is. But it's okay. I'll figure it out later. Here, because then I press this button and then I'm glowing. Isn't that cool? Do you guys like it when I glow? Here, I'll be a little bit lighter. Like this. Is this better? There. I think that's a happy medium. I like the glow, but I don't want to glow too much. Anyway, put a 1 in chat if you are ready to read. I'm looking at all of you, all right? If this is your first time joining us, I am going to be narrating Drown the Stars, which is a science fiction alien fantasy drama in which we primarily follow the younger of two sisters. We follow Vane, and Vane is known as the Walkmaw Butcher because Vane is credited for single-handedly destroying, killing a lot of people, and because Vane and her sister were the only ones that survived the war on Walkmaw, they are knighted by the crown, who is seen as a deity, a god. And Vane is a coward. Vane is very soft, and in this world, being soft and crying are punishable. Vane is known as a weeper because Vane cried once and was publicly seen crying, and therefore it was punishable, and now wears a weeper's mark. And we have learned that the crown and, the royal family purposefully sent weepers to either fight in the war that they knew these people were going to die, or they set up and they discriminate against weepers and send them to prison moons in which they will suffer. So we are currently only on chapter 5, but I can assure you that this is an amazing book. I have read it start to finish myself and asked the author if they would give me permission to do this. And they have so kindly accepted. So I get to continue narrating this for you today. Where do you read? I personally read the book for free on Fable. The author strongly believes in having materials available for free to the public to encourage, creativity. But for the ease of narrating to you today, I am reading it off of Amazon Kindle. And my cat is on the floor right now, so if at some point he decides to start acting up, I will unfortunately have to pause and take care of him. But it looks like Otokonoko desu is ready, and Loaf is ready, and Machine and Pan are ready, and Pro Self Love and ASMR Mans and Crimson are ready. Pro Self Love, thank you so much for the stream streak. And Lena is ready, and Wood is ready. Doki Doki, hi. I'm feeling okay today. I'm actually feeling kind of tired, but I want to be here. I want to still read to you guys, and I hope that this is the highlight of your day. Thank you so much for being here. And if you would be able to help me, if you do remain active in chat, as we get new people who join, asking what we're reading or what it's about, if you could tell them, I would really appreciate it, because I'm focused on the reading. The book is called Drown the Stars, and it is written by Quiana Chase. So if somebody on Twitch can just say the word book so I can get the thing to copy and paste. I apologize. I have a lot of commands set up for Twitch and for YouTube. Unfortunately, those don't exist for TikTok because TikTok is mean. Thank you, Celine. All right. I will go ahead and start recording and start narrating. Also, if I do make mistakes and if I do have to repeat sentences, please go easy on me. I promise you, I'm beating myself up on the inside. So, we all need some love and compassion. Let's take a deep breath. Chapter 5. 2 months post-Wakma. 7 years before assassination. Vane was happy to find that she wasn't expected to participate in the hunt itself, just be present in the Royal Lodge for the duration. Unless she wanted to become an expert at riding a bloodfin in a matter of weeks, and then use primitive weapons to slowly kill a monster capable of biting starships in half. She did not. Most of the officers attending the hunt were traveling on their own personal vessels. Vane didn't want to buy a spaceship just for this trip, so she hitched a ride with the Beast Masters. She did not tell Iris about this. The entire ride was spent surrounded by massive tanks of bloodfins, each with their own individual A-Grav controllers. The creatures looked a bit like sharks, with sail-like fins and narrow maws, colored in bright hues of metallic violet and red. Some of them had clearly been bred for visual aesthetic, which Vane imagined couldn't be useful for the actual hunt itself. After less than half a day of travel, they arrived at their destination, a hunting lodge within the antiplane itself. She made her way to the undocking bay, dragging her luggage behind her. An energy barrier covered the open loading doors, only allowing people and items with certain signatures through. Someone in a captain's uniform stepped out, the barrier briefly sizzling and rippling around him, and he immediately swam forward. Vane's heart lifted. She hadn't been underwater in a very long time. Maybe this would actually be nice. She waited until the line of people exiting the ship had disappeared, and then jumped through the shield with her luggage in hand, closing off her nostrils and flaring open her gills. The sensation almost made her gasp. Something about this water was different. Something about this water was different. It buzzed a little and tingled in a way that she'd never experienced before. Shaking her head to clear it, she swam forward towards the structure that everyone else headed to. It was massive, spherical, and made of a mixture of clear and gray biomatter. The sky of the antiplane wrapped all around in an infinite horizon made of warped gold and maroon ribbons. Vane wondered if it was possible to get a better look of their surroundings outside the water without immediately dying. She'd only been in the antiplane on a few occasions, when she'd traveled on an interstellar scale, and it hadn't even occurred to her that permanent outposts could exist there. Here, much less completely underwater. Not wanting to become an inconvenience to everyone else, Vane pushed through another barrier and into the biomatter structure. The amount of water surrounding her instantly went from infinite to zero, and she stumbled onto an oddly dry floor. Her luggage made a loud thunk as it connected with the ground, streaming water. "Welcome to the Fringes Hunting Lodge," said a Zevayan with a fancy laborer's uniform. They wore an orange necklace, indicating they were genderless. "It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I'll be taking you to your..." They trailed off, eyes locking on to Vane's weeper mark. Setting down her luggage, Vane brought up her knight's insignia on her bioband. The laborers stared in confusion for only a moment before resuming their speech. "Your quarters will be on the other side of the lodge, with the other members of the Crown entourage." Vane nodded. "Sorry, I know the Weeper's mark makes things confusing." "No, we all know who you are, Sir Vane, and your presence is very much anticipated, just not here." The laborer nodded at the piles of cargo freshly unloaded. "I apologize if it seemed like I was doubting your status." Shaking her head, Vane tried not to flush. "I don't have a ship of my own, so I hitched a ride." The laborer held up their hand. "There is no need to explain yours. There is no need to explain your exceptionally wise and elevated ways to me, Sir Vane. We'll just get you where you need to go. They explained that while the lodge was expansive, there were no warp pads, nor was there a lot of non-biotech, for that matter. Something about not wanting to attract the attention of krakens. Instead of gilded metal decor, living algae tapestries adorned the walls, depicting scenes of Zevayans mounted on blood fins and wielding tridents, chasing after enormous tentacled beasts. The artwork was beautiful. She was surprised to see it at all. Decor on the palace grounds was regulated to pure flora, fauna, and trophies. Anything less ethereal tended to be associated with weepers or the lower class in general.
Sir Vane!
Vane's legs locked instinctively, even though she didn't see Rokva. She felt him barrel into her legs and wrap his arms around her knees. It's good to see you here, Prince Rokva. She gently pat his head, glancing around for Salakin, and seeing no one. Where is caretaker Salakin?
Don't know,
Rokva mumbled, aggressively wiping his nose on her pants.
She was talking to somebody and I ran away.
You can't do that, Prince Rokva, Vane said gently. Salakin needs to know where you are.
Are we gonna build something today?
Vane. Rokva asked. I gotta say that again. Rokva asked, eyes growing big.
Are we gonna explode things again?
Vane shook her head. I don't think so. Rokva's face screwed up, and he bolted away from her. The carpet wasn't deep enough for him to swim through, so Vane easily caught up with him, gathering him up under one arm. The noises he made were loud and incessant, but not distressed. Rounding a corner, Vane encountered Salakin deep in conversation with the Queen. Her throat locked up, and she quickly set Rokva down. The Queen held up a hand, silencing Salakin mid-sentence, and coldly stared Vane down. Sir Vane, do you care to explain what you are doing here with my son? Vane hastily bowed, finger pressed against her forehead in salute. I found him wandering. I'm returning him to his caretaker. Expression completely void, the Queen did not even move to acknowledge Vane's words. Salakin, take Rokva back to his chambers. Saluting, Salakin grabbed Rokva's ear and dragged him away. Vane almost snapped at her, but the Queen was right there, and the kid seemed more annoyed than hurt. I would like you to join me, the Queen said as Vane started to move away. Vane swallowed, stomach twisting in on itself. Of course. Still carrying her luggage, she followed the Queen past an enormous, elaborate tapestry and into a room that had a small waterfall instead of a doorway. Biomatter containers of liquid adorned the walls, and 2 cold drinks sat on the center of a small... Biomatter containers of liquid adorned the walls, and 2 cold drinks sat on the center of a small table, already prepared. There were no other people present. Vane waited for the queen to indicate she could sit down, and then did so, heart pounding. The queen scanned the drink with her bioband and took a sip, staring off in the distance. Whatever program she had installed, Vane didn't have it. Maybe it would be wise to investigate it. How many hunts have you taken part in, Sir Vane? None, Vane said softly, shoving down a twinge of annoyance. They'd had this conversation before, and even if they hadn't, she was a weeper and literally the lowest rank one could be in the military. Hunts had been further than fantasies her entire life. You could participate in the hunt if you wish to. The queen drew a finger around the rim of her glass. If you want me to, I will happily do so, Your Majesty, Vane said. The queen said nothing for a few moments, taking another drink. I am curious. If I asked you to be my second in the hunt, and there would be no consequences if you said no, what would you say? No, Vane said immediately. I don't care for hunting. The queen remained silent, finger still circling the edge of her glass. Interesting. What is your reason for this? Vane cut herself off before she said something stupid. I don't like killing things. You are searching for an excuse. The queen's gaze bored into her skull, and Vane bit the inside of her cheek, frantically trying to come up with an excuse for her excuse. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I don't think you'd be satisfied with any answer I give. And if I were, what would you say? The queen took a sip from her glass, face stoic as ever. The truth, Vane said, instantly regretting it. A sharp exhale left the queen's nostrils. Whether it was born of amusement or irritation was impossible to tell. I don't think I've ever seen someone admit they intended to lie to me. At least, not so easily. I wasn't going to lie to you, Vane said. I just wasn't going to tell you the truth. The queen tilted her head. Deception does not come naturally to you, does it, Sir Vane? Clearly not. Heat rushed to Vane's face, and she finally took a sip of her own drink, hoping it was poisoned. You may as well tell me the truth. The consequences can't possibly be worse than those for attempting to deceive me. For a moment, Vane thought a hint of a smirk flickered across the queen's face. I have a lot of blood on my hands, Vane said. I'd prefer it if there weren't any more, even if it is just that of a kraken. Are you telling me you don't enjoy the conquest? The queen asked, setting down her drink and leaning forward, arms folded on top of the table, in an almost casual way. "I'm a weeper," Vane said, hearing her own future spiral into oblivion with every word that she spoke. She let her gaze lock onto the Queen's, since she wasn't going to make it out of this unscathed anyway. "We aren't known for going out of our way to conquer." "Is it because you enjoy being vanquished?" The Queen broke eye contact to look at Vane's mouth. Vane rubbed at her lips, suddenly paranoid there was something there. "I don't think anyone enjoys that. I don't think anyone enjoys that. Weepers are used to it, but we don't go out of our way for it to happen." "You are now a member of the royal entourage, Sir Vane," the Queen said. "You do not have to succumb to weakness or tradition. You have been given the opportunity to overpower the most magnificent force in the entire empire, if you desire. You could have it surrender to your will and hold its heart in your hands." "I could," Vane said. "But if it's easy enough for a weeper like me to do, then maybe it isn't as magnificent as everyone else says." I gotta say that again. Also, thank you, Chicken Shadow, for the bits, and thank you so much, Bill, for the bits. Thank you, thank you, thank you. "I could," Vane said. "But if it's easy enough for a weeper like me to do, then maybe it isn't as magnificent as everyone says." The Krakens had likely been worn down by other teams for months before the official hunt. Even if Vane enjoyed hunting, she wouldn't find any satisfaction in knowing that someone else had done all the work. It made the entire experience seem cheap. She assumed this sentiment would be at least a little impressive to the Queen, but her eyebrows shot up instead. "I'll still participate if you want me to," Vane said, frantically trying to recover from a "I'll still participate if you want me to," Vane said, frantically trying to recover from a mistake she didn't know the nature of. She needed to just shut up. "You're incredibly bold, Sir Vane," the Queen said, blinking as her face settled back into frigidity. It has been a very long time since anyone dared speak to me that way." If Vane had learned anything at this point, it was that talking made things worse. So she just shrugged, looking anywhere but the Queen's face. "You may leave," the Queen said, leaning back. "We shall see if this conversation has consequences, or if your mind has changed." "I will do whatever you command, Your Majesty," Vane said, scrambling to her feet and nearly knocking over her barely touched drink in the process. "That will never change." The Queen narrowed her eyes, and Vane tried not to panic again. She left as quickly as possible, grabbing her luggage on the way out, and dragging it behind her. What had just happened? Should she tell Iris about it? Probably not. There wasn't anything she could fix it. There wasn't anything she could do to fix it, whatever it was, especially not without putting herself at risk. No matter what Vane had just unleashed, she'd just have to deal with it on her own. I gotta drink water, catch my breath. My cat is enjoying the reading as well. He is also falling asleep. Sweaty. It's hot in here. It's hot outside. Sleepy cat. Vane had only been in the rehearsal room for 30 seconds, and it was already her least favorite room. And it was already her least favorite part of the lodge. The space was massive, easily the size of an arena floor, and everyone seemed determined to use it at the same time. She huddled in the back, searching for supplies Rockva would use in his showcase, and pretended that she neither noticed nor cared that she was being stared at. Did everyone know about her meeting with the Queen? Was it common for meetings like that to happen? Was there a chance she'd make it home alive? Or was it expected for every knight and the sovereign crown to talk like that? Vane tried to focus on sifting through the crates in front of her, getting distracted by the poorly packaged blast weapons. She found her original task long forgotten, replaced by the need to unpack every crate of weapons, make sure they weren't expanding or cracking, pour water into the crate, and put the weapons back. "Sir Vane." The unfamiliar voice made her jump. She turned around, surrounded by packaging and weapons more expensive than her childhood home. A small group of knights stood before her in grand regalia, faces blank. "Do you need something?" Vane fiddled with the blast spear in her hands, doing everything but look into anyone's eyes. "Where Prince Rakva's other knights?" the man in front said. "Though we don't often interact with the child, we were told you were in charge of his showcase this year." "I am." Vane adjusted the heat regulator and twisted the spear's handle before folding it into thirds. "Do you want to participate?" "Oh, crown, no," the man said. "It's a little distasteful for a crown knight to be so personally involved. We aren't sworn to some minor royal. We just want to make sure that you're not going to make a mockery of our liege." "Well, you're in luck." Vane set the spear back in the crate and closed it up before moving on to the next container, flipping open its latches. "He doesn't need a lot of assistance. He'll be assembling a data buoy himself, and it should only take him a few minutes, if that. The kid has a knack for it." The group of crowned knights softly groaned and pulled in air through their teeth. "Oh, he can't do that." "I checked the list of banned showcase activities," Vane said, opening the new crate to reveal even more poorly packaged weapons. It was a wonder nothing had burst apart or exploded in transit. "Everything is checked off and approved." "I don't mean that it would be unlawful for you to have him displaying technical skill," the knight said. "Just that we can't allow you to go through with letting him showcase it. Have him do a martial demonstration like everyone else." "It's an accurate representation of his studies." Vane unwrapped the oddest blast weapon she'd ever seen. A whip made with a hardened biomatter chain, and turned it over in her hands. "We haven't prepared a proper martial demonstration. He would be embarrassingly bad." The knight scoffed. "I thought the only reason you were teaching him was to help him become a good fighter. Or are the rumors true, and your sister is the only real butcher at Walkmaw?" At this point, she decided to just ignore him. Vane inspected the whip, trying to determine its practical purpose on the battlefield. Its user would have to be very skilled, and unable to be in close contact with other allies. Maybe it could be used to clear space and disperse enemy troops? Even then, they'd be exposed and an obvious target. Not a great combination. "He's very good at what I've been teaching him. You should be proud." The knight took a step forward, and Vane immediately moved back, bumping into a pile of crates. "Listen," he hissed. "You haven't put any of us in a good situation here. We're all going to be humiliated no matter what. But it'll be better for everyone if he's proven to be bad at combat instead of good at peasant's work." Vane nodded, still staring at the ground. She'd already made the queen upset, probably. It wouldn't be worth it to make the enemies... It wouldn't be worth it to make enemies of Rakva's other knights. Understood. Rakva probably wouldn't care anyway. He'd started to get bored with assembling the same pieces of technology over and over again. That's it? The other knight tilted his head, brow creasing. You're not going to protest? I don't think there would be much of a point. Vane let the whip's chain drop, and she activated it. Silver blast energy crackled down its width, sizzling when it hit the shallow carpet of water below. It didn't seem like it had been damaged. Is there anything else you want to bully me into doing, or are we done here? You know there are rules about duels. We're not barbaric. The knight sounded almost amused. You can try to pick a fight here, but it won't go well for you. I'm not... Vane realized what her actions looked like and switched the whip off. The blast energy dispersed into motes of light, and she wound the whip up. I wasn't challenging you to a fight, just making sure these things weren't damaged. The tension in the knight's shoulders relaxed. The first knight in history demoted to quartermaster. I gotta say that again. Say it with me, chat. That's how you get all the nerves worked out in your face. You gotta... Okay. And you take a drink of water. The tension in the knight's shoulders relaxed. The first knight in history demoted to quartermaster. Condolences. Well, when you are finished with your work, don't bother finding us. It's not personal, you understand. We just can't risk being seen with you in our polite company. That's the first kind thing you've said to me, Vane said. I will do everything I can to make sure we don't ever talk again. Peculiar. The knight scoffed. Vane waited until his footsteps faded before she went back to her work. She pulled up her bioband to make note to avoid him and the other knights, but realized she didn't know any of their names and didn't remember what they looked like from the knee up.
Sir Vane! We found you again!
Vane perked up to see Rakva attempting to squirm out of Salakin's grip. The other people in the hall moved out of their way, ignoring the small prince entirely. His caretaker only tried to hold him back for a few seconds before letting go, allowing the prince to charge directly toward her, head lowered. Determined to keep her kneecaps intact, Vane scooped him up before he made contact. Instead of complaining, the kid giggled like they were playing some sort of game. You're still alive, Salakin said. I was unsure. Her Majesty didn't exactly seem pleased with you. Well, I guess I didn't anger her too badly, Vane said. Rakval reached for the nearest open crate of blast weapons, kicking his feet as if they would propel him through the air. Bereft of anywhere else to put him, Vane set him on her shoulders. She just wanted to ask how I felt about hunting. Salakin's eyes narrowed, and her gaze flickered to Vane's hair. Congratulations. I suppose.
Gogs,
Rakva said, lightly slapping the side of her face. How do we ask for things? Vane glanced upward, though she couldn't see him.
Gogs, please.
Rakva kept batting at her face like it was a drum, still only hard enough to be annoying. And do we hit while we are asking for things?
I was only hitting a whittle,
Rakva said. Then I'll only give you your goggles a little. Vane fished his goggles from her pocket and piloted them close into his hands before pulling away. Rakva huffed and slouched over her head, chin in her hair and arms dangling past her shoulders.
Gogs, please.
I'm going to do that again because that didn't sound like a child, but I still like that.
Gogs, please.
Much better. Vane handed him his goggles, and he quickly put them on. He is a prince, you know, Salakin said, and you are not. By now, Vane had accepted that Salakin would always be upset with her interactions with the kid, no matter what she did. Thanks for dropping him off. I'm sure you have lots of exciting things to do. Salakin rolled her eyes, but she left, and Vane received a notification that Rakva had officially been relinquished into her care.
Are we gonna build the buoy again?
Rakva asked, squirming on her shoulders. You know, you did such a good job that we're going to be learning how to do something else instead. Vane worked through another crate of blaster weapons, unwrapping them and making sure most of them were at least a little bit wet.
Am I gonna learn how to fight?
Rakva wrapped his arms around her head, obscuring her vision. Vane pried his hands away from her eyes. I don't know. Do you think you're ready to learn? Do you think you're ready to use a blaster weapon? The sound the kid made nearly ruptured her ears. Nope, I said that wrong again. The sound the kid made nearly ruptured her eardrums. You have to be calm if you want to use a blaster, Vane said, and very serious.
I can be serious,
Rakva said, voice dropping to a gravelly tone.
So serious.
Vane snatched the lid on top of the crate, looking around for an attendant or technician, someone with a trident and spear emblem on his shoulder entered the rehearsal room, pad of biowater in his hands. Vane waved him over, and while his face remained blank, he very obviously noticed the papers strewn around her. These weapons weren't packaged properly, Vane said. I unwrapped them and dumped water in the crates. None of them were obviously damaged, but they'll need to be checked before anyone uses them. I have to say that again. I unwrapped them and dumped water in the crates. None of them were obviously damaged, but they'll need to be checked before anyone uses them. The quartermaster let out a small sigh. Ugh, thank the crown. They made us transport them like that and then wouldn't let us touch them. You're a crown knight? Yes, Vane said, stiffening. Good. You outrank the noble who gave us the stupid orders. Order us to take care of this, please. Absolutely, Vane said. Order you to make sure all these weapons are stored correctly and functioning. Thank you so much. The quartermaster held out his biopad with a transcription of her orders. Just put your crest here, so no one can bully us about it. Vane still wasn't good at signing her crest, but fumbled through it anyway. The quartermaster didn't seem to mind. It's nice having someone in charge who actually knows how things work. Next time, don't bother doing the heavy lifting yourself. I'm sure you have much more important things to do. I'm sure you have much more important things to do. Dang it. I'm sure you have much more important things to do. He was probably mocking her, but it still felt nice to have somebody be even a little kind. Vane nodded before hurrying off to the combat range, and Rokva clutched her hair in his tiny fists as she maneuvered through the clusters of officers and nobles, waiting to use the various arenas and advanced equipment.
Look!
Rokva shouted, likely pointing.
Zaylen's here.
Normally, that would have been enough to make Vane pivot in the opposite direction. The crown heir was far too important. But in this case, it was probably better to go where the children were practicing. At the very least, one of the crown heir's caretakers would be able to tell Vane where one could safely train a child how to use a deadly weapon. It only took Vane a moment to spot Zaylen herself. The young girl had more armed guards surrounding her than anyone else, and she wore a netted mantle woven with silver and gold thread. She had a blaster dagger in her hands, and fired at a target probably a quarter wave away. It wasn't firing safety bolts. Vane pulled Rokva from her shoulders, inviting a whine of protest, and gripped his hand tightly in hers. There was no doubt that he could sprint. There was no doubt that he would sprint into the center of the firing range at the first opportunity. We can practice here, right? Vane asked the woman in the fanciest uniform. She briefly scanned the prince with her eyes, then gave a curt nod.
Zaylen!
Rokva shouted, waving his free arm.
It's me! I'm learning how to fight like you!
I'm trying to concentrate, Crown Zaylen said. Her voice sounded smaller than Vane expected, though her cadence uncannily matched someone far older than she was. Leave me alone, Rokva. Rokva's smile faded only a little.
What kind of knife are you using? Do you like them better than spears? Or tridents? Oh, what about a sword?
So sorry, Vane said, dragging Rokva farther down the range. Let's leave your sister alone, all right? She's working on her showcase too. Probably.
Okay.
Rokva cupped his remaining hand around his mouth to amplify his shout.
Bye, Zaylen!
The crown heir did not respond, instead firing 4 more bolts through her dagger. Her form was better than most of the soldiers in Vane's old unit. Vane pulled Rokva into an empty firing lane and peered up at the wall of weapons available for use. Ideally, he'd have his own blaster, one that he could become familiar with, inside and out. But Vane hadn't packed one, and she wasn't about to bother anyone else today. The default weapons would have to do. It's not like she ever got to train with a consistent blaster, and she was fine.
Can I use the knife?
Rakva hopped up and down so quickly, Vane worried he'd launch himself into orbit if she let go. Sure, but you need to learn safety first. Rakva rolled his eyes and arched back, groaning almost as loudly as her fellow recruits when they'd been told the same thing. Vane removed the smallest blaster dagger from the wall. Even though it was meant to be held in a single hand, Rakva would probably need both to even have a chance of firing it. Tears. This was a terrible idea. Vane did her best to explain the blaster's function in a way that got the information across, while also not boring the kid to death. He nodded, but the instant she asked him to repeat back to her, he fumbled over his words, eyes latched on to the weapon in her hand. Vane knelt down so her eyes were level with his. Hey, look at me. Do you know what these do to people? Shoot them? Rakva tilted his head, eyes wide and innocent. Yeah. Do you know what happens to people when they get shot? They die. Do you know what that looks like? Rakva shook his head. Vane sighed and wrapped her fingers around her bioband, lengthening it along her arm. She did a quick search among Crown medical files and found a few of the most gruesome captures she could, detailing burns and discolorations caused by blaster fire. Sometimes, blaster bolts went in clean and neat, but she avoided those and only selected the most horrific ones. Look, Vane said, pinching the bioband and tugging it into the shape of a screen. She displayed the images one by one, and with each new picture, Rakva's eyes grew a little wider. If you're not careful, you could do this to someone else here. Rakva glanced over at Crown Zaylen in the booth next to them, anxiously chewing on his knuckles. That's really bad, he whispered. Do you want to hurt your sister like that? Vane asked, flicking over to a capture of a man with only half of his face. No, Rakva mumbled. Do you want to hurt me like that? No. What about you? Do you want your face to look like that? I don't like looking at those. Rakva buried his face in his hands, but the tips of his fingers slipped apart enough for him to peek through. If you are not so incredibly careful, Rakva, you will be one of those captures. Pay attention when I tell you how to be safe. He nodded, eyes clouding over with dark tears. I don't want to hurt anybody. I know, Vane said. Maybe she'd gone too far. Maybe. She hadn't encountered the kinds of things she'd shown to him until she was at least 10, and they had left her haunted even then. But these are dangerous. And you have to be careful. Do you understand? I don't want to use the dagger anymore, Rakva said, tendrils of ink spreading across his pupils. Tears. Well, if you're careful and you listen to me, then none of the bad stuff will happen. Well, if you're careful and you listen to me, then none of the bad stuff will happen. Vane tousled Rakva's hair, but that didn't seem to make him any less upset. So, keep your frills up, all right? No need to cry. Rakva calmed down a little bit, but his lips still trembled and his chest hiccuped with every other breath. With almost every breath. I'm not crying, he said, even though his voice wavered. I'm not. I'm not crying, and I'm not hurting anybody. Then you're doing better than most of us. Vane did her best to comfort him, and in a few moments, he calmed down enough to repeat back her safety instructions verbatim. He accepted the dagger like one would a bomb, and she couldn't have been prouder. She gave him some pointers on aiming and firing the dagger, then felt confident enough to stand back and let him practice. He now knew almost everything she did. A very unique approach you have with that one, said a member of Zaylin's entourage, folding her arms and keeping her gaze straight ahead. It took Vane a moment to realize she was speaking to her. Thank you, Vane said, tensing up. I mean that genuinely. Too many of the children here are either exposed to nothing but brutality or kept completely in the dark. It's rare to see, balance. The woman's cadence was even and calm, but something about it seemed deadly. I wouldn't know. Vane kept watching Rakva. He hit the target, maybe once, and the timing between shots was awkward at best. He still paused every 7 shots to carefully switch the blaster. Off and activate the cooling mechanism. I couldn't tell. You did excellently. I'm Cyril, by the way. Something about her words made Vane squirm. I appreciate your appreciation, I guess. I do think that the Queen should have taken the same approach with the Crown Heir, Cyril said. It's clear she didn't do a good job. Just look at the result. A spoiled machine who only knows brutality as numbers formed in algae. It will make for a crown that is too soft. Vane stared at Cyril in shock, and then at Crown Zaylin. The child's frills were pinned against her head, and she swallowed as she looked at the ground. Surely one of her entourage would step forward and defend her. Some of them bore knight insignias. After a moment of silence, none of them even indicated they were listening. She's right there, Vane said, raising her voice in hopes they'd hear. Why would you speak of royalty that way in front of her knights? I gotta use a different voice, sorry. She's right there, Vane said, raising her voice in hopes they'd hear. Why would you speak of royalty that way in front of her knights? Some of the nearby noise died down as conversations quieted. No one stepped forward to take Vane's place. I'm complimenting you, Cyril said, unaffected. Your prince is going to be remarkably less pathetic than his sister. Crown Zaylin shrunk into herself, disabling her blaster and slipping a cooling agent into the handle. Vane glanced at the other members of the Crown Heir's entourage, but their responses remained the same. Well, she was in trouble with Rokva's other knights and the queen herself. If something terrible was already going to happen to her, there wasn't much of a point avoiding conflict. She's not pathetic, Vane said, folding her arms. She's a better shot than most soldiers in the field. I bet she'd last longer than you. So my compliments are returned with personal insults, Cyril said. Are you trying to pick a fight with me, Sir Vane? I won't let you talk about her like that. The woman took a step forward, flickering her bioband to display an admiral's badge. You won't let me? Vane swallowed. Besides Iris, she'd only ever seen admirals 3 times in her life, but never their faces, and they'd always been very far off. But if Vane didn't stand up for the kid, no one else would. Sanvo's memory wouldn't stand for her to look away while a child was belittled by anyone, much less people who should have known better. There is nothing wrong with the Crown Heir. I say there is. I say her mother has made nothing but terrible decisions regarding her upbringing, and you're the only one in this room with a hint of sense when it comes to children. But my high opinion of you is dropping quickly. I don't have an opinion of you at all. The Admiral jerked back, blinking. Sir Vane, you cannot speak to me like this. I'm pretty sure you can't speak about the crown the way you have been, but that hasn't been stopping you. Are you going to apologize or not? No, Cyril said, voice flat. But if you don't, we will have a duel. We will have to duel. If I'd done anything worthy of apologizing, I'd offer one, Vane said. But I haven't. I seem to be the only one in this room who takes our oath seriously. If you want to fight me about that, go ahead. I don't mind. This wasn't. Cyril glanced back at the other members of Crown Zaylin's entourage, who shrugged but kept silent. She sighed and stepped forward, lowering her voice. Listen, you made your point. Just walk away. Not until you apologize to her, Vane said, pointing to the Crown Heir. I'd love to, but I can't take demands from a weeper, the Admiral said in a tight whisper. Well, I didn't whisper, so I gotta say that again. I'd love to, but I can't take demands from a weeper, the Admiral said in a tight whisper. It's best for both of us if you drop this and get back to training the prince, because clearly he needs it. Are you insulting the prince now, too? Vane let her voice rise, garnering more attention. Do you make fun of kids because you're too weak to bully anyone else? The Admiral's face hardened. So we will be fighting then. I hope you're prepared. I doubt you'll be worse than anything I faced on Wonkma. I said that wrong. I doubt you'll be worse than anything I faced at Wakma. The confidence in Cyril's features wavered a moment, and her gaze briefly flickered back to her colleagues, who seemed just as ready to intervene as before. There, she said, pointing to an occupied training ring. Bring a long weapon with its blaster disabled. We'll settle this the way you're used to. Fine, Vane spat. She contacted Salakin, sending a voice transmission while locking eyes with the Admiral. Caretaker Salakin, come get the prince. Now, please. Are you sending him away so he doesn't have to see you get ripped apart? The Admiral asked, unhooking a baton from her belt. It expanded into a sturdy trident with an explosive movement, barbed tines snapping out with an elaborate series of flourishes. Vane shrugged and snatched a spear off the wall of Rakva's booth, and the kid looked at her in confusion, switching off his own blaster.
Where are you going? I only just started getting good,
Rakva said.
I hit the target a bajillion times.
Good job. Oh, there's cat hair in my eye. Oh no. Good job, Vane said, offering him a smile. You're doing great. He beamed at her, frills perking up. Salakin rushed in even faster than expected, grabbing Rakva's hand and dragging him away. Instead of protesting, the kid just looked confused. It was very rare that he spent less than a few hours with Vane when he was deposited in her care. Damn it. It was very rare that he spent less than a few hours with Vane when he was deposited into her care. Cyril stormed across the room, shouting at the people inside the ring she'd pointed at. They scrambled away and into an empty arena without question, offering hasty salutes as they did so. Vane hated people like her, high-ranking officers who threw their weight around just to hear the noise it made. And Zaylin was supposed to be the most respected child in the world. If Cyril felt comfortable belittling the crown heir when she was 3... If Cyril felt comfortable belittling... Blah, 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 blah. Say it with me, chat. Blah, 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 blah. Drink water. And Zaylin was supposed to be the most respected child in the world. If Cyril felt comfortable belittling the crown heir when she was less than 3 paces away, what was she doing to other kids? Vane hopped in the ring, clutching the unfamiliar spear. Melee combat was far from her specialty, but right now, she didn't care. She was tired of these fancy officers and nobles who treated open rooms like mazes. I don't feel like doing a formal duel today, Cyril said, unhooking her netted mane. Cyril said, unhood. I am not going to bash my head against the wall. as much as I want to bash my head against the wall. Cyril said, "Nope. Wow. I tried. I really tried. Don't worry, I'm just crashing out. I'm silently crashing out. I'm silently crashing out. Sarah sells seashells by the seashore. Tongue twisters. Sarah sells seashells by the seashore. No English? Sprechen die Deutsch? Tummy twisters? No, that's Taco Bell. Thank you for the hydrate. I'm not gonna crash out. I don't feel like doing a formal duel today, Cyril said, unhooking her netted mantle from her shoulders. I doubt you even know the rules, so we'll just go until surrender. That was actually better than anything Vane had assumed. She nodded, setting her spear aside to take off her own mantle, which she still wore around her neck and tucked into the front of her uniform. Cyril wrapped her ornate mantle around the end of her trident and raised it into the air. So the challenge is issued. Vane hastily wrapped her mantle around her spear, tying it tightly around the shaft to keep it from Who flicked the switch in my brain that turned off literacy? Because I need you to flip it back on. Vane hastily wrapped her mantle around her spear, tying it tightly around the shaft to keep it from dragging. She raised it in a single fist, already ready for this to be over. So the challenge is answered, Cyril shouted. A small crowd gathered, ever eager to watch blood sport. Vane switched off her spear's blaster capability with the same time the Admiral switched off her tridents. They both dropped in low stances, and Vane's heart sank. The Admiral's movement was fluid, confident, and she held her trident in front of her in a way that screamed expertise. Vane quickly ran through her options, combing through the two rules they'd agreed on. She wasn't even tempted to lunge. Cyril's stance alone made it very clear what would happen the instant Vane got within range. Her own weapon was shorter, so she didn't even have the kind of advantage she'd been hoping for. Vane shifted the grip of her spear to one hand and feigned a lunge while she whipped her dagger from her belt, activating it with her thumb and firing in a fluid motion. Vane shifted the grip of her spear to one hand and feigned a lunge while she whipped her dagger from her belt, activating it with her thumb and firing in a single fluid motion. The Admiral twisted out of the way, the bolt hitting the edge of the ring and dissipating in a ripple of light. The Admiral turned to face her, nose scrunched into a snarl. "You cowardly bitch!" Vane fired again, aiming for her legs. Serral spun her weapon downward at an incomprehensible speed, catching the bolt on the trident's largest prong. Before Vane could pull the trigger a third time, Serral swung her trident down onto the Before Vane could pull the trigger a third time, Serral swung her trident down onto the dagger in a brutal chop. It fell from her fingers and bounced across the floor. Vane lunged for it, and a sharp pain exploded against her head, knocking her aside. "Can't believe I was worried about the outcome of this fight," Serral muttered. Vane lifted her spear to use as some sort of barrier, but the Admiral caught its shaft between the tines of her trident and twisted it out of her grip, flinging it across the ring. Oh, shit. Vane wasn't sure what would happen next. The Admiral moved so quickly, and all she understood was the blinding pain erupting from her head, stomach, legs, head again. Head again. She gasped on her back, lifting her arm to shield her face. Serral swept it to the side and slammed her trident into Vane's wrist, pinning it to the ground between two tines. Her protective uniform was the only thing keeping her arm from being torn to shreds. "Apologize, and I'll let this end in a draw," Serral said through clenched teeth, straddling Vane and pinning... I'm going to do that again. "Apologize, and I'll let this end in a draw," Serral said through clenched teeth, straddling Vane and pinning her other wrist next to her head, with enough force to make the carpet splash. "No!" Vane said, anger bubbling with the proposition. She was weak and unskilled, but she was still a Zavayan, and she didn't regret a single word spoken in Zaylen's defense. Serral ripped her trident free, barbs taking bits of Vane's uniform and flesh with it, and she brought its butt against her jaw. Vane's head snapped to the side, vision spinning. Unable to react before the Admiral brought the trident down on her arm again, holding it in place instead of piercing it through. Vane cried out, even though the physical pain hadn't sunk in yet. That was her left arm. The one she relied on to do most of her work. No, that sentence is weird. That was her left arm, the one she relied on most to do her work. "Surrender!" Serral commanded, leaning closer and increasing pressure with her trident. The serrated edges tore through skin and muscle, cutting deep enough that it didn't bleed right away. Vane tried to pull her other arm free, but the Admiral held it in a death grip. A dark piece of her thought about spitting in Serral's face, but even she wasn't worthy of that amount of disrespect. Serral pulled back, pressing her boot against Vane's free wrist while bringing the other into her stomach. The Admiral turned to face her. Wrong. Pain. She couldn't breathe. Her nose sealed up out of instinct and the slits on her neck opened,
doing their best to circulate the pitiful amount of water she was lying in. Vane curled up, trying to mitigate as much damage as possible while the Admiral kicked her over and over and over again.
Admiral Cyril, I command you to stop!
A child's voice. One that the Admiral obeyed immediately. This is a duel, Your Highness. This is a duel, Your Highness, Cyril said, tone apologetic. She isn't surrendering.
You said everything my mother asked you to,
the young voice said, close and quiet enough. Damn it, I didn't do it quietly.
You said everything my mother asked you to,
the young voice said. The young voice said, close and quiet enough that only Vane and Cyril could hear. I don't think she'd appreciate it if you broke her newest tool. Admiral Cyril yanked her trident back, tearing up the already raw skin on Vane's arm. As you command, Crown Heir. She stepped off Vane's wrist, shouting something about obeying the Crown's commands. Everything spun. Vane didn't dare stand up, sure that the violence would resume.
Call a medic to attend Sir Vane,
Crown Zaylin said, voice monotone.
I believe she is unconscious.
Vane did nothing to prove her wrong. Violet blood seeped from her wounds and into the carpet, threatening to get into her gills. She still couldn't breathe. Someone eventually approached her and pulled her out of the training ring, practically dragging her. She did her best to stand on her own, but even putting a little weight on her right leg made it buckle beneath her, sending pain shooting up her ankle. Sucking air through her teeth, she found she could breathe normally again, and made the conscious decision to unseal her nostrils and close up her gills. The medic dropped her the instant they reached the edge of the rehearsal hall, not bothering to find somewhere more private to patch her up. He was not particularly gentle as he pulled off her jacket, cut away her sleeve, and applied a stim wrap to her open wounds. Thank you, Vane whispered. The medic grunted and finished taking care of her, mumbling something about a possible mild concussion, and that she should avoid getting hit for the next month or so. He handed her a bottle of capsules, commanded her to eat one now and every morning for the next 2 weeks, and packed up his things. Swiping her wrist across her mouth, Vane ran her tongue across the back of her teeth, shocked that only one had come loose. Cyril had gone very easy on her. That should have made her feel grateful, but instead she grew angrier. The Admiral had found it in herself to be merciful to her, a grown woman and a weeper, before she could speak kindly about the child she was supposed to serve and protect. Though Zaylin had said something about Cyril obeying instructions the Queen had given her. But that didn't make any sense. No one nearby even acknowledged that Cyril had spoken. If this was a test of loyalty, Vane found it difficult to believe that she was the only one who had passed. That meant she'd failed somehow, and she'd keep failing until the Queen had enough and had gotten... And she'd keep failing until the Queen had enough and got rid of her. If she had known surviving Wakma would lead... If she had known surviving Wakma would have led to her... If she had known surviving Wakma would have led her to a life filled with unspoken rules and every head turned toward her, maybe she wouldn't have done it. No, that wasn't true. Everything just hurt, and she missed her sister and her mother and her father and her long-dead brother. He would have been proud of her, or incredibly ashamed. There was no way to know. Vane stood up, steadying herself against the wall. Everyone had gone back to practicing their various showcases. Even Crown Zaylin and her entourage had moved on to practicing with some other weapon. Rakva would be more ill-prepared for tomorrow. Vane couldn't possibly resume his training, not while being effective, anyway. His other knights would be humiliated. That didn't matter. But his mother... Vane couldn't afford to make her even more upset than she already was. Not with her. Not with the kid. Peeling herself away from the wall, Vane staggered off in the direction of her room. Few people moved through the halls, and Vane hoped that meant she'd leave. Few people moved through the halls, and Vane hoped that meant she'd be left in peace. Whatever the medic had done to her ankle made it better at withstanding pain, and she was able to make it all the way to the children's hallway before someone stopped her. Unfortunately, that person was the Queen. She stood in front of Vane's door, guarding it like a sentry. Vane's heart couldn't decide if it wanted to stutter or sink. She offered a salute and bowed as deeply as she could without toppling over, which wasn't very far.
Sir Vane,
the Queen said. The only member of her entourage present was Cadet, and he looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Convinced any words that left her mouth would be used against her, Vane nodded.
Admiral Cyril informed me of your duel. I am sure you expected to win.
Vane snorted before she could help herself. The Queen's brow furrowed.
If not victory, what were you hoping to accomplish?
No one else was telling her to shut up, Your Majesty, Vane said. So I had to.
You found her words deplorable.
And unacceptable, Your Majesty, Vane said. That was safe to say, right? The test had been to see if Vane would defend the crown heir, and surely she had passed, right?
You seem emotional about the ordeal,
the Queen said. Because I am, Your Majesty. She just wanted to get into her room and go to sleep. If she had to play one more mind game with the goddess of her galaxy, she was going to scream.
I would like to invite you once more to join me on the hunt,
the Queen said.
Serve as my second. I think it's more than clear you have rightfully fought for and earned your prize.
Not this again. Vane squeezed her eyes shut, trying to understand what was actually being asked of her. Even if she wanted to join the hunt, there was no way she'd be forgiven for her lack of expertise or daring to participate in a noble tradition as a weeper.
What will happen
What will happen to me if I say no, Your Majesty? You will not join me on the hunt. And that is all? You have my word. Then I will decline, Your Majesty, Vane said, her words slow and careful. I am very tired. My body is broken, and we both know I would hinder your hunt more than assist it. She braced herself for the Queen to twist up everything that had been said and make it blow up in her face. For now, I am willing to accept the consequences of your inadequacies, the Queen said. If you want me to join you and humiliate you, I will, Vane said. If you want me to do something, say so, and I will comply. The Queen blinked. So, you do not want to join me because you fear humiliation? Clearly not, Vane said, pointing at her weeper's mark. Not for me, anyway. But that's something very important to... Vane caught herself before she said, you uppity types. Members of the court. Prince Rakva's other knights are already forcing me to change his showcase because they don't want his technical skill to make them look bad. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Is my son's skill poor? Not at all. He's extremely gifted, and the showcase I had planned was pretty impressive. Not at all. I don't like that one. I didn't like that one. How is this conversation going? You know what? Water. Not at all. Not at all. He's extremely gifted, and the showcase I had planned was impressive. They just prefer he be known for being bad at combat. Why didn't you challenge them? I didn't want to end up like this, Vane said, sweeping her hand over her body. It didn't seem like something worth getting beaten up for. But Cyril's words were, the Queen said. Yes. Vane felt like an animal stretched across a dissection table. A dissection table. Of course. The Queen stared at her without saying anything for an uncomfortable amount of time. Cadet, did I formally approve of Prince Rakva's showcase? Cadet scrolled through his biopad, lightly tapping on it. Yes, Your Majesty. More than a week ago. Which knights objected to the nature of Rakva's showcase, Sir Vane? The Queen asked, tilting her head. I don't recall their names, Your Majesty, Vane said. I apologize. Cadet, select one of Rakva's other knights at random. Schedule their execution immediately before Prince Rakva's showcase. Vane almost choked. She hadn't intended to get anyone killed. Cadet nodded and typed something out on his biopad with the same air as setting up a dental appointment. Have your thoughts about joining me on the hunt changed? The Queen asked. I will do whatever you ask of me, Vane said, hoping with all she was that she had answered correctly. Then stay here, the Queen said. I do not understand your intentions, and I have no more desire to engage in your convoluted dance. I expect my son's showcase to be exceptional. She turned and left, leaving Vane convinced she had somehow chosen the option that was the wisest and most foolish all at once. I'm free. I'm finally free. That's the end of chapter 5. Okay, now I can talk to chat. Hi, chat. Thank you for watching me suffer. Man, that one was a doozy. Oh, but I really enjoyed it. Oh, I love this book so much. Pookie, you're so cute. Aww. Yeah, woohoo, suffering. Oh my god. I think I did good though. I think I did good on that. That was difficult, but I think that I did pretty darn good. I still feel good about that. I mean, I can only do so many masculine voices and so many feminine voices. Mostly the masculine ones kind of get me. Like I said, I can only do so many masculine voices. Hi, J-Dog. Hi, Otomen. Hi, Wholesome Dev. Yes. And then there's Pookie. I must give you your nickname. Open this, and then where's my keyboard? I must give you your nickname. Pookie with 2 E's. There you go. It probably won't take into effect immediately. Hi, J-Dog. I'm glad to see you again. Chicken Shadow. They have like 3 different usernames across 3 different platforms, and so we, in the Discord server, they said that I could call them Pookie because that's their Discord name. So I can call them Pookie. Yippee! Let me see. Also need to do this. Yeah. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching the stream. But more so, thank you for listening to me reading. Excuse me. I'm drinking so much water that I'm burping. Ugh. But I remember that chapter like fondly. Like when I was reading it myself, I was like, what? Why are they treating the child like this? Like, why are they being so mean? Why is nobody doing anything? And then you come to find out it's like, oh, it's because the queen ordered it. The queen ordered Cyril to say something mean. And it's like, oh, okay. I see now. And the other thing that I find really interesting, more water. Yeah, thank you for the water. I'm out of water. I like when the lights are off. It's nice. Let me see. I don't like having this kind of like ooh mouth shape, because I really like having realistic mouth movements. What do you guys think about it? Do you care about it at all? Like literally? So when I open my mouth, you see how it's kind of like ooh shaped. Hi, Mike. Thank you for being here. I'm glad that you are enjoying the reading. I really appreciate that you guys are here. And hi, Nightwolf. Hello. I don't have hands because my camera stopped working, but I'm waving to you. Hello. How are you today? Pops? Our fish water is questionable. I won't drink the fish water because the fish pee in the water. I'm good. You're good. I am tired. I'm tired today. I'm not gonna lie that before I started, what if I drink fish? Don't drink the fish. That's another person. Don't drink people. They might not like that. But I'm gonna not say anything else. Yeah, the background music, and of course, the bot saw that you said music, and that playlist is made by the artist who made my music. Because people were asking, like, hey, I want to listen to this music on repeat. And so my artist was like, okay, I uploaded it to YouTube. Here you go. Hi, Unzipped. What if I ask them for consent first before drinking them? Then it's kinky. And I'm not involved in that. Like, you guys can be kinky with each other. You don't need my permission to be kinky with each other. That's, that's none of my business. I don't need to be involved. Yes, we don't eat other fishies. I will be sad because we value life here. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Was there a thing that I needed to... No. Yes? Who's trying to drink me? Ooh. No.
I prefer beef and chicken. Well, that would... Pookie, are you trying to get swole? Because that's a good way of getting swole. Before stream, I was actually saying that I'm tired today, and as much as I really liked this story, I actually wasn't sure if I wanted to do like a full stream today, because I just didn't feel like I had the energy to come into stream and be like, oh yeah, hype myself up, like woohoo, stream. I was like, you know? Hello, no problem. I wish you the sweetest dreams. I like fish crackers, but they're crackers. I like Cheez-Its. They're just square versions of goldfish, right? You know, that reminds me, I still need to take the fishies that are in the background, and I still need to bring them into, I don't remember if I can do this in Blender or in Unity. Maybe I can ask this one person if they can do that. But the fish in the background are not the correct colors, so I need to ask someone if they can go in and they can change that. Your voice sounds different.
What kind of different? You're asking... You're saying that a voice actor's voice sounds different. How can my voice sound different?
It's not like I sound like this all the time.
No. Sometimes I want to sound like this.
And if anyone remembers from my reading of Jane Eyre, sometimes I want to sound like British man. You know, oh, even better, if anybody was interested in seeing perhaps the recent videos I've been posting, where we hit 1,650 subscribers on YouTube. Pog Champ. Put some pogs in chat. Pog Champ. But here, let me get the link. If anyone is, I'm hoping to be a voice actor and a writer, well, I would love to read your writing. That's something that I will continue to ask and encourage. If you have writing that you would like for me to read, I would love to read your writing for either, like a social media post or not even for a social media post. We do have a forum set up in the Discord server so you can share your writing for feedback if you are looking for feedback. But can my fish have... No, your fish cannot have a weapon. Oh, silly fishies. The link that I dropped in chat is the Wizard of Oz audiobook that I've been progressively posting to YouTube. So if anybody wants to listen to my narration of The Wizard of Oz, I highly encourage that. I have heard that people really like that. I didn't even ask you what you thought of that story. The chapter 5 that we just read. You do audiobooks? That's essentially what my narration is. I have several other playlists on my YouTube channel. So there's also Sherlock Holmes. There's Pride and Prejudice, and there formerly was Jane Eyre,
However, I would personally really like to re-record all of Jane Eyre. I love that book. I love that story. There's also somebody had recently asked me to read what is it, like something Anne of Green Gables or something like that. And that sounded like a nice story, so I'd like to read that as well. So yes, there are a lot of books that I have yet to get to and to read, but I try to limit streams to about 2 hours because of the sake of my voice. Voice acting for 2 hours straight is very hard on my vocal cords, so that's why I need a break. But hey, I'll be back again tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. to resume reading the next chapter of Drown the Stars, chapter 6. Don't get nodes. What are nodes? Should I be worried? Should I be concerned? What time? 3 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. We do an earlier stream on Saturdays because we do have a lot of international fishies that are in time zones farther ahead of me. That's an oldie. I actually don't know anything about Anne of Green Gables. It's 9 p.m. for you? Or the 3 p.m. will be 9 p.m. Well, hey, 9 p.m. for you instead of, if 3 p.m. for me is 9 p.m. for you, then what the heck, what time is it for you right now? It's 1 a.m. Well, that just means that on a Saturday night, I can help you get to sleep at a good time. I guess you're just going to sleep by 11 p.m. I'm 6 hours. Whoa. I'm 6 hours ahead. Hi, 6 hours ahead. I'm Steph. Oh no, I'm bald. Hello, Steph. I'm hungry. My name isn't 6 hours ahead. No. I don't know what nodes are. I heard from Pitch Perfect. I know that there's a lot that you need to do to take care of your voice, and it's hard. It's hard to take care of your voice because I don't want to rely on drinking tea and having cough drops and, all these tips and tricks and what have you. I still would really, really like to get to a point with content creation where I can do my live streams and stuff, and also be able to spend, all of Sunday or what have you, recording auditions for new roles and stuff. I'd really like that. But unfortunately for right now, that's not going to happen in the next short term. We'll just say short term. That's not going to happen in the short term but it's a goal that I want to work up to. I have insomnia. I won't be sleeping for the next 3 hours. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a chance for a guest to join you in an ASMR stream? What do you mean a guest? Unfortunately, I feel a tummy ache about to make me very much suffer in pain. So I am gonna go before my stomach rebels against me. And let me see if I can find a lovely friend for us to raid on Twitch. If you are not already following, you can find me on any platform, most platforms, using the same name, StephTsu. And I am actually going to reject all of the hydrate redeems. There are 36. Some of you are ridiculous. 36? I drank a lot of water, yes, but I am not going to individually reject the ones that I don't know whether I achieved or not. So, if you're watching on Twitch, no, let me back up. If you enjoyed the stream today and you'd enjoy some more content, you can find me on most platforms under the same name, StephTsu. So hopefully you enjoy my short form videos on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or Instagram Reels. And if you enjoy my live streams, you'll most likely enjoy my edited YouTube videos. I will take these narrations and I will actually edit them down, so you will have the edited version of my readings available on YouTube anytime and available in playlists, so that it is easiest for you to listen to the whole story all at once. This is the part where we say our good nights, our goodbyes, and our see you tomorrows. If you're watching on Twitch, we are going to raid out, ! Raid, copy the raid message. Everyone can share it, regardless whether you are a subscriber or not. If you are not watching on Twitch, I highly encourage you to join the Discord server so you can choose what you get notified for whenever I go live, whenever I post videos, or whenever we have special other things happening, like a challenge for our clippers, or writers who are interested in sharing their story, or even movie nights and hangout times. What else do I say? I will be back again at 3 p.m. Eastern Time Zone tomorrow to read Chapter 6 of Drown the Stars by Quiana Chase. Sorry for the flashbang. And I don't remember what else I'm supposed to say, but please drink your water, eat your food, be kind to yourself and others, and have a good night. Bye-bye.